Welcome back to the Mental Load Fix. I'm Felicia Kashavirov, relationship coach and founder of Tend Task. If you watched part one, you've spent the last week noticing who handles the anticipating, researching, deciding, and monitoring in your household. If you're just joining us, I highly recommend starting with part one, where we break down what the mental load actually is and why it's so difficult to share equally. For those of you who did the observation exercise, you probably discovered some eye-opening patterns. Maybe you realized you're the one who notices when household supplies are running low, or that you're mentally tracking everyone's schedules while your partner focuses on day-to-day physical tasks, like doing the laundry or washing dishes. Today, in part two, we're taking those observations to the next level to give you even more insight and clarity. If, at this stage of the game, you're already feeling angry or resentful about the invisible work you're carrying, I want you to know those feelings are completely valid. You're not imagining it, you're not being dramatic, and you deserve to have this burden shared. Your observations matter because they make visible what has been invisible. When you start paying attention to the mental load, you begin to see how many small moments of cognitive work happen throughout each day. Moments that often go unnoticed and unacknowledged. What I've learned through my coaching work is that couples often struggle with the mental load, not because they don't care about fairness, but because they don't have a clear picture of how this work is actually distributed. One partner might genuinely believe they're contributing equally because they participate in decisions and help when asked. The other partner feels overwhelmed but struggles to articulate exactly why. This is where assessment becomes crucial, not to keep score or build a case against anyone, but to create a shared understanding of patterns that developed unconsciously. Today, we're going to give you practical tools to map out how mental load actually functions in your household. Think of this as gathering information, not making judgments. Instead of asking you to track everything for a week, I want to try a different approach that's more realistic and immediately revealing. We're going to use what I call the mental load story method. Here's how this works. Think of one recent family event, project, or situation that required coordination. This could be back to school prep, a recent family gathering or birthday party, planning a vacation or a weekend trip, managing a household emergency, or organizing a play date or social event. Choose something that happened in the last month or so that the details are still fresh. Now, I want you to tell the story of that event using the 4 components of cognitive labor as your framework. But I also want you to pay attention to the emotional labor that happened alongside the thinking work. Remember from part 1, emotional labor is managing the emotional well-being of your family members and maintaining the emotional climate of your relationships. It's noticing feelings, providing comfort, and tending to everyone's emotional needs. Let me walk you through an example using back-to-school preparation. Component 1, who anticipated? Who figured out when class lists would be posted? Who checked to see what clothes and shoes still fit and what needed to be replaced? Who pulled out the old backpack to see if it could be washed and salvaged for another year of use? And on the emotional side, who managed any anxiety about the new school year? Did your child get the teacher they were hoping for? Do they have friends in their class? Does their new teacher need to be brought up to speed on learning issues and challenges? Component 2, who researched? Who looked up what supplies were actually needed? Who compared clothes, shoes, and backpack options, checked store hours, and maybe researched whether generic school supplies were acceptable versus name brands? Emotionally, who processed their child's specific preferences and concerns? Who managed the emotional labor of figuring out what would help their child feel confident? Component 3, who decided? Who decided what to buy and what to keep from last year? Who decided on the back-to-school budget? Who decided whether the kids really need that new water bottle that everyone seems to have? But also, who navigated any emotional decisions like how to handle a child's anxiety about new teachers or social dynamics? Component 4, who monitored? Who made sure everything actually got purchased and organized? Who followed up on forms and deadlines? Who checked in emotionally with how the kids were adjusting? When you map your story onto these 4 components, you'll likely see a clear pattern. You might discover that you handled 3 out of the 4 components, with your partner participating mainly in decision making or handling the physical tasks like picking up an item you ordered. Or you might realize that you carried both the cognitive and emotional labor from start to finish. Now, I know that life is busy and addressing these issues can feel like a lot. If mapping out a full story feels overwhelming, try one of these simpler approaches. A 24-hour snapshot. Document one day, noting each time you anticipate, research, decide, or monitor something. An interruption tally. Count how many times you get interrupted by family management questions and thoughts during focused activities. Ask your partner to do the same. A stress response check. Notice who feels responsible when something gets forgotten or goes wrong. The goal isn't to create a perfect assessment. It's to start to paint a picture of the imbalance that may be happening. When you write a mental load story, you'll likely notice that some of these patterns extend far beyond this one situation. You might discover that you're consistently the household's early warning system, noticing what needs attention before anyone else does. You might find that you've become the family's emotional manager, the one who tends to everyone's feelings while also handling the logistics. If you're carrying both cognitive and emotional labor, that explains why the mental load feels so completely exhausting. You're not just thinking about what needs to happen, you're also managing how everyone feels about what's happening. You're the logistics coordinator and the emotional support system. And here's something important. If you're handling 3 out of 4 components consistently, you've developed expertise through necessity. You are better at anticipating and monitoring because you've had more practice. But that doesn't make it natural or inevitable. It makes it learned behavior that can be redistributed. Once you've completed your story or one of the other assessments, you'll have concrete data about how the mental load is distributed in your relationship. This isn't about keeping score. It's about creating awareness of patterns that have developed unconsciously. Many couples tell me that simply doing this assessment was transformative. Invisible work becomes visible. Patterns that felt vague become clear and specific. And most importantly, both partners can see exactly where changes need to happen. In part 3 of this series, we're going to dive into systematic solutions for redistributing the mental load. But understanding your current patterns is the essential first step. I'd love to hear what you discover. Share your mental load story in the comments if you're comfortable. Your experience might help someone else feel understood and less alone. If your story confirms what you suspected, that you're carrying a disproportionate share of the mental load, you're not alone, and this can change. The patterns that developed unconsciously can be shifted intentionally with the right tools and commitment. Make sure to subscribe for part 3, where we'll dive into practical solutions for redistributing the mental load. And if you want to dig deeper into understanding your unconscious beliefs about relationships and gender roles, I've created a gender ideology assessment that helps couples identify patterns in their partnership beliefs that can begin to explain the behaviors we're talking about. The link is in the description below. Understanding these underlying beliefs can help make the solutions in part 3 much more effective. Thanks for watching, and remember, awareness is the first step toward creating the equal partnership you both want.